At the office holiday party, my manager slurred, "Honestly, she's just here to cover my screw UPS and smile pretty for clients." When I confronted him, he clinked his glass and laughed. "Go ahead, princess, tell everyone how important you think you are." Everyone went silent as I pulled out the email chain where he had plagiarized my work and forwarded it to the CEO. The next morning, HR was waiting outside his office. "Hi Reddit. This is a long one. I've been holding it in for a long time, but after everything that went down, I need to get it off my chest. Maybe it'll help someone else. Maybe it'll just feel good to tell it. Either way, here goes. My name's Allison, but everybody at the office called me Al. I worked at a mid-sized consulting firm in Columbus, Ohio. Not a huge company, but not small either. Big enough that the higher-ups barely knew the names of half the employees. You either made yourself visible, or you stayed invisible forever. When I got hired, I thought I'd made it. Full-time salary. Benefits. My own cubicle. For a girl straight out of grad school, it felt like winning the lottery. I was assigned to work under a senior manager named Derek. He was one of those guys who you could tell had been coasting on charm his whole life. His smile was just a little too practiced. His handshake was just a little too firm. His jokes felt like something he memorized off the internet. But he was my boss. I figured, whatever. You don't have to love your boss. Just do your job and keep your head down, right? That's what I thought at first. The first few months, I worked my ass off. Late nights, early mornings, weekends sometimes. Every major client presentation, I had a hand in building. Research, strategy, reports, all me. Derek? He'd pop his head into my cubicle 5 minutes before a meeting, swipe the flash drive off my desk, and strut into the boardroom like he was king of the world. I told myself it was normal. It's how corporate life worked. Pay your dues. Smile. Grind it out. But the more I stayed quiet, the worse it got. I started noticing little comments he made in meetings. "Great work, team," he'd say, even when it was obvious I had done the work alone. "Couldn't have done it without all your help," he'd smirk, clapping me on the shoulder like I was some loyal golden retriever. Meanwhile, he was climbing. Getting noticed. Schmoozing with the higher-ups. And I was burning out. Then came the innovation proposal, a big deal at our company. Whoever came up with the best idea for improving company efficiency would win a bonus and a shot at a major promotion. I stayed up for weeks building a pitch. Data models, client behavior analysis, market research, I poured my soul into it. I even emailed Derek asking for feedback. He never responded. A month later, at an all-hands meeting, the CEO stood up and announced the finalists. Guess whose name was on the board? Derek. He was up there beaming, holding my research, my projections, my words, barely even changing the fonts, and acting like he had dreamed it up in the shower one morning. It hit me like a punch in the gut. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. I was scared. Scared of being labeled difficult. Scared of losing my job. Scared that nobody would believe me over him. Instead, I started collecting evidence. Quietly. Every email, every draft, every note. I even forwarded the email thread where I sent him the original proposal to my personal account, just in case. And I waited. Fast forward to December. The office holiday party. It was at this fancy hotel ballroom downtown. Tacky Christmas decorations everywhere. Giant tree in the corner, mistletoe hanging above random doorways. A jazz band playing half-heartedly in the background. I wasn't planning to stay long. I hated these things. But my coworker Brianna guilt-tripped me into going. "You deserve to celebrate," she said. "After everything you've done this year." I laughed. If only she knew. When I got there, Derek was already 3 drinks deep. He had this flushed, sweaty look, like a guy who thought he was way funnier than he was. I stuck to a corner table, nibbling on appetizers, trying to avoid attention. Then I heard it. Loud. Slurred. Clear as a damn bell. Honestly, she's just here to cover my screw-ups and smile pretty for the clients. I froze. I knew that voice. I turned my head, and there he was, leaning against the bar, talking to a circle of partners like he was the life of the party. He wasn't even trying to hide it. He gestured right at me with his drink, sloshing it onto the floor. Everyone around him chuckled awkwardly, like they weren't sure if it was a joke or if they should step away. I felt my chest tighten. My hands shook. I wanted to disappear. Instead, I stood up. I walked straight over to him. No plan. No script. Just pure, raw rage. "Excuse me?" I said, loud enough that half the room turned. Derek turned, gave me this lazy smirk. Like I was a mosquito buzzing around his head. He raised his glass, clinked it against mine, and said, "Go ahead, princess, tell everyone how important you think you are." Dead silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Even the jazz band stopped playing for a second. For one long, awful moment, I thought I might cry. I almost turned around and ran. But then I remembered, I had the receipts. I pulled out my phone. Found the email thread. Pulled up the forwarded copy to my personal account. And without thinking twice, I connected to the hotel's AV system. They hadn't secured it, and projected it onto the giant screen behind the dance floor. There it was. Email from me, 2 months ago. Attachment, original innovation proposal. Subject line, for feedback. Then, right underneath it, Derek's forwarded email. Same proposal. His name slapped on top. The room exploded. People gasped. Someone near the back laughed out loud. Derek's face went from cocky pink to sickly gray in about 5 seconds. I turned back to him. "I'm not here to smile pretty," I said, voice shaking but clear. "I'm here because without me, you wouldn't last a week." And then I walked out. The next morning, when I came into the office, Derek's door was closed. HR was standing outside it, holding a thick file. I sat down at my desk, logged into my computer like nothing happened. My inbox was flooded with emails. Some were from coworkers congratulating me. Some were from people just saying, "Holy sh*t, Al." I didn't reply to any of them. I didn't have to. I just sipped my coffee and waited. Inside that office, I'm sure Derek tried to talk his way out of it. I'm sure he spun a million excuses. But it didn't matter anymore. The truth was too big to hide now. It didn't take long for word to spread. By noon that day, everyone on our floor had heard what happened. People were whispering in corners. Peeking over their cubicle walls like kids at a slumber party. Some pretending to be busy while their eyes followed every move. At around 1 p.m., Derek's door opened. HR walked out first, faces tight. Derek followed a second later. He wasn't carrying a box or anything, not yet, but he looked different. Deflated. Defeated. I caught his eyes for half a second as he passed by my desk. He hated me. I could see it plain as day. But there was nothing he could do. Or so I thought. A few days later, things got weird. I was called into a special review meeting with HR. I assumed it was about replacing Derek. I was already doing most of the work, after all. Instead, when I sat down, the HR rep, Cheryl, gave me this tight, uncomfortable smile. "Allison," she said, "we need to talk about some concerns that have come up regarding your conduct." My stomach dropped. Concerns? My conduct? What are you talking about? I asked. Cheryl shuffled her papers. There had been allegations that you mishandled company property, specifically, that you accessed and shared confidential files without authorization. It hit me like a slap. They were trying to turn it around on me. "Wait," I said. You mean the email that I wrote? The proposal that was mine? Cheryl wouldn't meet my eyes. That's not the point of this review. The point is that sensitive internal communications were displayed at a public event without permission. I realized what was happening. Derek must have gone nuclear after he got fired. Must have thrown every accusation he could at me on his way out the door. And now HR, probably scared of a lawsuit, was trying to investigate me to cover their own asses. I wanted to scream. Instead, I kept calm. Kept my voice steady. I have proof, I said. I can show you the original emails. The timestamps. I can show you the project management logs. Everything. Cheryl gave a little shrug. We're just beginning our fact-finding phase. I knew what that meant. They were buying time. Seeing if they could pressure me into quitting. If I stayed quiet, they'd hang me out to dry. If I fought, it would get ugly. But after everything Derek had done, I wasn't about to roll over now. That night, I called a lawyer. Not some big expensive firm downtown, I couldn't afford that. But I found a tough-as-nails employment attorney named Mark Jeffers who agreed to take a look at my case. First consultation was free. I brought him everything. Emails. Memos. Calendar invites. Even screenshots of Slack messages where Derek asked me to send him those client strategy notes, without ever giving me credit. Mark flipped through the folder, nodded slowly. You've got enough to crush them, he said. But it'll be messy. I didn't care. I was already knee-deep in it. Might as well finish the job. Mark sent a formal letter to the company the next morning, laying out exactly what would happen if they tried to retaliate against me: wrongful termination lawsuit, retaliation claims, breach of contract. Suddenly, the tone from HR changed. Fast. They called me back in the next day. Cheryl was all smiles now. Polite. Careful. Allison, she said, after reviewing the documentation you provided, we've decided there's no need for further action. We appreciate your contributions to the firm. Translation: please don't sue us. I kept my face neutral. I nodded. I thanked her. But inside, I was boiling. They weren't doing me a favor. They were trying to cover their own asses. And I wasn't finished yet. Meanwhile, without Derek around, the cracks in our department started to show. Projects fell behind. Client relationships wobbled. Turns out, when the guy who took credit for everyone else's work is gone, there's nobody left to pick up the slack except the people he ignored. I knew the systems inside and out. I had built most of them. So the partners had no choice but to come to me. Can you help us stabilize things, Allison? We really value your leadership, Allison. Would you be interested in taking on a larger role, Allison? Suddenly, they were offering me things they never would have dreamed of 6 months ago. Not just Derek's old job. Something bigger. But I wasn't stupid. I knew this company would throw me under the bus again the second it was convenient for them. So I smiled politely. Said I needed some time to think. And while they waited for my answer, I was already planning my next move. I didn't tell anyone I had a lawyer. I didn't tell anyone I was interviewing. And I sure as hell didn't tell anyone I was talking to the CEO behind closed doors. Because, yeah, that happened too. It started with a calendar invite. Subject: quick chat, CEO office, time, 3 p.m. sharp. No explanation. No warning. I almost didn't go. I thought it might be some weird ambush to talk things out or smooth things over. Maybe even a setup to make me sign something under pressure. But my lawyer Mark told me, always show up. Just don't agree to anything without time to think. So I went. The CEO, Mr. Grant, was standing by the window when I walked in. He didn't even sit down at first. Just looked out over the city like he was some character in a movie trying to figure out where everything went wrong. Allison, he said finally, turning around. I owe you an apology. I blinked. Didn't expect that. He motioned for me to sit. He sat across from me, hands folded like he was trying very hard not to screw this up. I heard about what happened, he said. The holiday party. The situation afterward. He paused. I want you to know, Derek's behavior was unacceptable. And so was the way HR initially handled your case. I didn't say anything. I just watched him, waiting. We can't afford to lose someone like you, he said. You're smart. You're a leader. We want to invest in you. Then he slid a folder across the desk. Inside, a formal promotion offer, a big salary bump, a guaranteed bonus, a fast-track plan for future leadership roles. It looked perfect. Too perfect. I glanced up at him. And what do you want in return? He smiled. Tired. Just your commitment. Your loyalty. Loyalty. That word tasted like acid. After everything, they still thought loyalty was something they could buy with a paycheck. I told him I needed time to consider it. He agreed, but I could tell he wasn't thrilled. Here's where the next twist hit. 2 days later, I got a LinkedIn message from a recruiter at a rival firm, Rothwell Consulting, bigger than ours, more prestigious, and way better known nationally. They had heard about the drama. I guess the business world in Columbus is smaller than it looks. The message was short and sweet. We'd love to talk about opportunities. Heard you might be looking for a fresh start. I almost dropped my phone. Was it risky? Sure. Rothwell was fierce. High expectations. No room for mistakes. But they also had something my current company never really gave me, respect. And a chance to build something without constantly fighting to be seen. I set up an interview for the next week. Meanwhile, back at my current office, the pressure kept building. I started noticing little things. People who used to chat with me at lunch were suddenly cold. I overheard whispers in the break room, she thinks she's untouchable now. Probably gonna sue the company any day now. Must be nice, riding a scandal to the top. It stung worse than I expected. I hadn't asked for any of this. I hadn't wanted to be the center of attention. All I wanted was to do my job and get credit where credit was due. But corporate loyalty is fickle. The second you stand up for yourself, you're a problem. Things came to a head when I got an anonymous email. No greeting. No signature. Just 3 words, watch your back. It wasn't from any official company account. It was a burner email, I could tell. Someone inside the company wanted to scare me. Shut me up. Push me out before I embarrassed them anymore. I sat there staring at my screen, heart pounding. It could have been anyone. Someone loyal to Derek. Someone who thought I'd broken some unspoken rule. Someone bitter that I hadn't just smiled pretty and kept my head down. I didn't forward the email to HR. I didn't reply. Instead, I took a screenshot, saved it to my cloud drive, and quietly added it to the file I had already started building. Because now it wasn't just about Derek. It was about the whole damn system that protected guys like him. And I wasn't leaving without burning it down behind me. After I got that anonymous email, I knew I had 2 choices. I could let them scare me into leaving quietly. Or I could hit them where it hurt, the one place corporate America still feels pain, their reputation. And after everything they put me through? The choice wasn't hard. First, I accepted the job offer from Rothwell Consulting. It was a big move. Way more responsibility than I had ever had before. They even offered to relocate me to a nicer part of town, help cover moving costs, everything. It felt surreal. They wanted me because they knew I had survived the fire, and built good work even when everything was stacked against me. I signed the paperwork. Set a quiet start date. But I didn't give my notice yet. No. I had one last thing to do first. Around the same time, I was invited to our company's annual stakeholder meeting. It wasn't a casual office event like the holiday party. This one mattered. Investors would be there. Clients. Board members. Real power. I wasn't a high-level executive, so normally I wouldn't even get a seat. But because of my new promotion, I had an invite. Front row. They thought having me visible would make them look progressive. Like they valued young talent. Like they supported rising stars. They had no idea what I was about to do. The meeting started just like any corporate event. Fake smiles, polite applause, boring financial graphs on the projector. Mr. Grant, the CEO, stood up to give his usual speech about growth and culture and investing in people. I sat there, heart hammering in my chest, hands sweating against the envelope tucked into my bag. When the floor opened for employee feedback and recognition, I stood up. Every eye in the room turned to me. Mr. Grant smiled that tight CEO smile. "Yes, Allison," he said. "Would you like to say something?" I took a deep breath. And calmly, clearly, in front of everyone, I said, "Yes. I want to thank the leadership for showing me exactly how this company values loyalty, by punishing the people who do the real work, and protecting the ones who steal it." The room froze. Dead silence. Grant's face paled. But I wasn't finished. I pulled the envelope out of my bag. Inside were copies of the email Derek plagiarized. Screenshots of internal chats where partners joked about taking credit for junior employees' work. A timeline showing how HR tried to investigate me only after I exposed a manager's fraud. The anonymous email threatening me. I handed it to the head of the board. "I thought you should see this," I said. Before making any more speeches about company culture. Then I picked up my bag, turned, and walked straight out of the conference room. I didn't look back. The fallout was immediate. By the end of that week, the board launched an internal investigation. HR's head was reassigned. The CEO was forced to issue a public apology to employees and stakeholders. Several senior managers quietly resigned, pushed out before they could be fired. It wasn't enough to fix the system overnight. It never is. But it cracked it wide open. People who had stayed silent for years started coming forward with their own stories. People who had been ignored finally got heard. And me? I sent a short, polite resignation letter the following Monday. Didn't even finish the month. Started fresh at Rothwell Consulting, where, for the first time, my work actually had my name on it. Sometimes, when I'm driving home from my new office, I still think about that night at the holiday party. The way Derek laughed at me. The way the room went silent when the truth hit the screen. And I smiled to myself. Because the thing about men like Derek? And companies like that? They think the game is rigged in their favor. They think people like me will stay quiet forever. Until the day we don't. Until the day we remind them, we weren't hired to smile. We were hired to win.